to Health, Wealth, and Happiness, a fast-paced, informative hour-long program dealing with physical, emotional, and mental health issues, consumer information, and money management, as well as the arts, theater, travel, entertainment, social, and civic events. Brought to you by the University of South Carolina School of Medicine Specialty Clinics, the Institute for Partnerships to Eliminate Health Disparities, the Newberry Opera House, the South Carolina Philharmonic, supplements manufacturer A.J. Lanigan, Leon Jones Insurance, and the Mitchell House and Gardens. And now, here's the host of Health, Wealth, and Happiness, Gary Posey.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Health, Wealth, and Happiness. Here's a rundown of today's program. My first guest joins us via the phone, as he does once a month. He's Rusty Brzee. He's the owner of ScoreNavigator.com. And today we're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions and credit. You know, this is the time of the year where we make New Year's resolutions, and one of them many times is, I gotta save money. Well, one of the great ways of saving money is to rip up your credit cards and not use them, or pay off your credit cards, because that's where your biggest interest is. And the amount of interest you're paying on credit cards has nothing to do with anything more than whatever the market will bear. And we'll be discussing that with Rusty during the first half hour, because he's an expert in the area, over 30 years experience in credit. From 1:30 to 1:45 each Thursday, Dr. Frank Martin is my guest. Today we're going to talk about acid-reducing medications and the effect they have on vitamin B12. What's vitamin B12 deficiency and why is that important? Stay tuned, Dr. Martin will tell us. My final guest of the day will be Claire Moore. Claire will be discussing famously hot New Year's Eve right here in Columbia with a lot of talent. Hope you'll stay tuned. This has really turned into one of the biggest celebrations in the Southeast, and a lot of talent this year. It gets better every year. So I hope you'll stay tuned for the entire program, and welcome back, Rusty Brzee. Good to have you here.
Hey, Gary, how you doing? You sound like you're catching a little bit of winter cold.
Yeah, I am picking it up, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. I felt it coming on a couple of days ago, and here it is. But I made it through the holiday okay, with at least through Christmas with it. I guess it'll still be hanging around come New Year's Eve. But one of the things that I think is interesting is a lot of people, Rusty, as you well know, divorce in the United States, contrary to popular belief, the biggest reason divorce happens is not sex. It's not because somebody's running around on somebody else. The number one reason why people divorce in America is over money, over finance. And God, there's nothing worse than overextending yourself, spending more than your income. I have no earthly idea how many people have just gone through that, but there are probably some people listening to us right now that are still paying off last Christmas. I'm not talking about what happened yesterday. I'm talking about Christmas 2012.
Oh, absolutely, Gary. Yeah, it's really bad. And we'll see a lot of that come up and affect us in January, February, March, in our business. People out looking for their credit, seeing what kind of damage was done and what's the next step they have to do.
Give us, because you're on top of this, what is the current debt, average debt, that people have here in America on their credit card?
What we see on statistics and by working with customers daily, over 80% of their credit cards are used to the max.
And what is the dollar value of how much people owe nationally on credit?
I don't have that number, but I can tell you it's got to be in the billions. It's not in the millions anymore. Not as much as our national debt, but it's getting there.
And I think that the average family owes upwards of $30,000 in debt, just in credit card debt, and that's just mind-boggling to me.
Well, once you get tied in, it's really hard. we talked in the beginning about the New Year's resolutions, and I went back, Gary, and I looked at where they kind of rank, and in the top 10 from 2013, which of course was eat healthy and exercise regularly was number one. Everybody would go out and try to join the gym to start with. And that's the same thing with credit. People will go out and they'll attempt right away to start doing something about what just happened to them and get into better credit shape. But we see that the national average across America, they start fading away after they get involved in 2 to 3 months into it on their own.
I'm sure you're asked this question all the time because it's your business. Why is it that credit card interest rate is so much higher than any other form of interest? It's not anywhere near what we pay for a home. It's not anywhere near what we pay for an automobile loan. Why is it that credit card interest rates are so doggone high?
That's a good question. And, part of my philosophy on it is if you really look at it, and we've had this discussion before, a $300 high credit on a revolving credit has as much or more impact as a $300,000 home loan. And so there's so much impact and weight put on revolving credit in order to have a good score or have a medium score or a low score, but yet the rate of borrowing that money is unlimited. I mean, there's some credit cards out there right now that promote where you can get their card, but they charge as much as a 76% on your dollar. I mean, that's worse than the loan sharks.
That's just mind-boggling, and it may not be illegal, but my Lord, it certainly is immoral. And there's no doubt about the fact that if you want to really save money, the best thing that you can do for yourself is to pay off your credit cards, and you can do it in priority. Take that credit card that has the highest interest rate and pay it down as quickly as possible.
Well, that's what you have to do. But, going back into, we just talked about that eating healthy and exercise was number one. Number two was drink less. Number three, I just want to go through these with you real quick, Gary. Learn something new. 4, quit smoking. A better work life, a better, balance your life. Volunteer more. Save money that you talked in the beginning of the show is ranked all the way down to number 7. 8 is getting organized. Number 9 is to read more, understand more of what's going on. And then 10 was, finish the honey-do list, so to speak, around your home. But if you go in here and you look and see what your credit scores do to you with the lack of financing, the things that are on you, that causes people to drink more. It certainly takes people, they say they smoke because of the stress. Their work ethics are terrible. They're stressed out. Their life at home. Number one reason for divorce is your money and your credit issues. All of these things that people want to make a resolution to do better in the following year, if they would just look at where it all originates, and to me, it originates with your credit. Your credit's going to be responsible for a lot of these actions.
It's pathetic when you take a look at savings to see how few people in America actually put any money aside, Rusty. I mean, it doesn't happen.
It's tough, but it's about discipline. So you got to go in and you got to know how to work with your finances first. You got to get a budget sheet. There's a lot of them that are online. You can get a really good budget sheet, and you need to sit down and watch and see where your money's going. And if you take that money and you can apply it towards what you've already done to yourself in credit, and then that means, Gary, you're going to have to quit certain luxuries, certain addictions, certain things that are going on. And once you start applying that money properly, if you know where to place that money, then you will soon, it's not going to happen overnight, but it didn't happen overnight to get you in that situation. Well, some people it did. They just went out and got a bunch of credit cards and just went crazy. But, if they just really balance their time and they stick with it and they're patient, then they'll eventually get out from underneath that credit card debt, and then they'll learn how to control things better. And then they'll quit a lot of bad habits they have along the way.
You know, money management is an interesting subject, and I know it's something that you and your company spends a great deal of time with. You not only help people in terms of getting out from underneath it, a lot of that has to do with money management. I'm always interested in people over the years who've told me that they tithe, and everyone that I know, every family that I know that are tithers, all basically say the same thing. Gary, once you start tithing, it's amazing. God provides. And I think that has to do with money management. If you give 10% of your income to the church, somehow it forces you to be a money manager. And because you are giving 10% and making that pledge to your church, you know you've got to pay attention to details about your money.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And getting to that, we have an old story about that. You know, if you were in church and then you pulled out your checkbook and you passed it to the person to the left of you, and then let somebody go in tithe, then there seems to be at least the 10% that gets put into the till for it. So you know, it's hard for people to do that because, again, of different habits. And if they do apply that, and one of the things that we do in our credit management company is, well, it's the first thing that we do, is we have an interactive budget sheet where the consumer can actually be, the member can be online in there, and one of our credit professionals can be online as well, and they can go through and help them set that budget. Because we can help them. People sometimes they're oblivious to where they're just throwing away the money. But because we know where that money could be placed in order to better their financial and their credit situation, we're trained to work with them and show them, yeah, absolutely, got to give it to God first. Then you go in and then you can start putting your money towards your creditors in the right way and just sacrifice a little bit. It'll be well worth the prize at the end.
Setting priorities on how to get the biggest bang for your buck is something that I think, regardless of your income, is time well spent. I read an article today online saying that if you're interested in buying a new car, that between now and the end of the year, every year is always the best time to buy an automobile. And that may be true, but I'm a firm believer that rather than buying, now this is me, it doesn't have to be you, but this is me, rather than spending money on a brand new car, especially with the way in which automobiles are made today, buying a car that's 2 years old, and I dare say that a car that is 2 years old with low mileage, you'd have a hard time telling the difference between that car, a 2012 model, and a 2014 model. Pick your favorite brand.
Oh, I agree with you, Gary. I absolutely agree with you. But then it's ironic that when you want to go out and you want to smart shop, you want to go for the best deal, and you have to get it financed, the rate's higher for the used vehicle versus the brand new trying to push that product. It's just like you keep paying when you try to keep saving.
What is amazing to me is that you can buy a brand new automobile today and finance that sucker for 7, yes, you heard me right, 7 years.
Which, goes back to what you just said. The reason why you can finance it longer is because the durability of the vehicle. So absolutely, you can go out and you can get that used vehicle, and then you just got to kind of weigh it out. The amount of years versus a little bit higher of the interest rate versus the brand new over a longer period of time. Because people are basically, we payment shop. You can look at prices, but you payment shop. How much is my down payment? How much is my monthly payment, and can I drive away in that auto today? If you're trying to buy a house, same thing. How much is my down payment? How much is my monthly payment? And how fast can I move? And people are always moving fast. They're always trying to make that deal today instead of spending a little bit of time to kind of evaluate what's the long term in their credit. What's it going to do to me today, or what's it going to do to me 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 25 years from now, 30 years from now?
My point is that if you buy a new car, yes, there's going to be that euphoria that you live with. But how long does that last? A month? 6 weeks? Maybe 2 months. But then the shine kind of wears off the penny. And what does that cost you? Well, almost across the board, about 8%. In other words, as soon as you drive that car off the lot, it decreases in value about 8%. Is it worth that euphoria for 2 months to lose 8% investment? I mean, not for my money, but it may be for you, but it's not for me.
And I agree with you, and that's why you got to weigh out, do you get the 0.0% financing, which is built in, or do you go the 4.75 on a used vehicle, and then you still weigh it out and you say, what's the difference between the two on what you're actually going to wind up paying in for that length of time? And then you know what? It feels really good when you finally don't have a car payment at all.
Amen, brother. And as you say, the unfortunate thing is most people don't know, Rusty, whether they got a good deal or a bad deal. All they're looking at is how much does it cost me per month. And if the guy selling the car convinces you, but look, Rusty, you're going to save, if you buy this new car, I can lower your monthly payment by $43.75. In other words, instead of paying what you're paying now, you'll pay $43.75 a month less on a brand new car. What a deal.
I know.
And people buy into that all the time. Of course, I'm extending the amount of time that you're going to owe on this by 3 or 4 or 5 years. But let's not talk about that. I'm lowering your monthly payment, don't you understand?
Yes, and that's what's happening. And your payments and the rate of financing, obviously, it's tied to your credit. And so, Gary, we've had a bunch of auto companies get involved now with our ScoreNavigator product, where they're actually offering it as a free report to the consumer. They pay us for the report, and that way the consumer has the tools to work with, and the dealership has the tools to work with to at least get them, if they're going to come out and buy, get them the best rate of financing, get them that tier 1 instead of a tier 3, where they fall in love with the auto, but their payments are $50, $60 more a month, or they wind up going, instead of 48 months financing, going 72 months financing or 84 months financing, and they wind up spending $20,000 or $30,000 more for the vehicle.
I don't know how many people are aware of this, but the highest paid employee at any dealership is not the mechanic. It's not the person who sold you the car. It's the finance person. They by far make the most money of the agency. Why? Because that's the profit center of that automobile agency. And they're the people that make the money for the agency. And they do it hourly. And you do it every 3 to 5 to 7 years. Who do you think knows all the ins and outs better? They or you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's insane. It's a numbers game. And again, when people go out, first thing you should do is you got to know what your credit is, because there's so many things that are going on with identity theft. I mean, I know you're hearing all the stuff here about with the Target store. Well, ironic, the name Target. And people need to look at their credit. They need to understand it. They need to know how to budget themselves. They need to get themselves in the right frame of mind, so when they go out and they speak to that F&I guy out at the dealership, they have a little bit more control because they have a better education. And when they sit down with them, then they can make sure if their score holds a certain level, then they're going to get this rate of financing. Because sometimes what will happen is, even with the guys with good credit, they may go ahead and bump the rate up just a little bit because they don't mind spending a little bit more money because they have access. So you got to be really, really careful about what you're doing.
Amen. And that holds true not only in the vehicle you're buying, but what they try to get you on, because there's flexibility here, and boy, they can make a lot of money on it, is warranting out that car. They'll say, well, you've got warranty on this for the first 50,000 miles, but that just covers the powertrain. Now, if you want full warranty coverage, we can provide that at next to nothing compared to the price of the car. And people buy into that constantly, but what they don't realize is the price that you're being quoted is a negotiable price. Most people say, oh, okay, well, it's $2,000. Okay, well, go ahead and add it on, without saying, I'm not going to pay that. Sharpen your pencil. You can do better than that. And most of the time, just by making that comment, you'll be amazed at what they will do for it. Or come back and say, cut it in half and I'll listen to you. Well, they won't cut it in half, but they'll come down 40%. And this is how you buy a car.
Yeah, and it's tough, Gary. And the problem again, and I'm going to take you right back to it, is the buyer that goes in with a 580 score, which is not a real good score based upon a number of factors that are on your credit report. When I say it's not a good score, I mean a 580 can get you financed somewhere, but anytime you have your credit pulled and you see that score, the credit data is not correct, so the score is not correct. So that 580 might be a 620, and so it might be a 640, or it might be a 585. It's not going to be a 580 because the data, not everything on that credit report is correct. So when those buyers go in with that type of credit score, they're the ones going to be where they're going to get those add-ons put on. They're going to get all these extra things put into play on them buying their vehicle. It's like GAP. And I would say, why would you want to put GAP on it? What you're telling me is when I buy this vehicle and I drive off the lot with it, that the value is going to go down so much that if I get into an accident, my insurance is not even going to cover what I just bought. And I just got the vehicle. Why are you selling me that in-between policy? And so if you've got a better credit score because your score is legit and you go in, then you have more bargaining power with those guys. They're not going to try to add this on. They're not going to do this because they know that you can buy anywhere at any time.
Great advice. We'll take a break and come back with more right after this.
Heart disease, joint pain, allergies, eye care. The list of health needs we're faced with goes on and on. But it's comforting to know there is one healthcare practice in the Midlands with the expertise to take complete care of you. University Specialty Clinics. Only at University Specialty Clinics will you find a team of 200 doctors who are expert physicians and world-class medical educators. Whether you need a simple physical exam or need complete complex medical treatment, you can trust the doctors at University Specialty Clinics to take special care of you for life. Call 255-3400 for an appointment. That number again, 255-3400. University Specialty Clinics is owned and operated by the University of South Carolina School of Medicine, where we practice what we teach.
Our policy is taken care of South Carolina. Leon Jones Insurance. We're from South Carolina like you. Neighbors and friends through and through. Our policy is taking the time to give you the service you expect to find. Our policy is taking care of South Carolina. Leon Jones Insurance.
With locations in Columbia and Batesburg, Leesville, call 790-5600. That's 790-5600 for a quote.
When credit scoring was introduced into the marketplace in the mid-'90s, who really knew the impact it would have on our lives today? The 3-digit number determines the rate of financing we get on our home and auto loans, insurance rates, and even employment. But do you know how your credit score is calculated, and is it accurate? Do you know what to do to raise your credit score or change errors in your credit report? ScoreNavigator.com at just $19.95 a month not only gives you the most accurate credit score in the industry, it will tell you how to increase your credit score. Listen to information about you and your credit on the 4th Wednesday of the month from 1 to 1:30 right here on Health, Wealth, and Happiness.
We are back. My guest for the first half hour of today's program is Rusty Brzee, who is the owner of ScoreNavigator.com. And Rusty, what I'm hearing you say is that before you go to purchase an automobile, or any big-ticket item for that matter, be that an appliance or whatever, and you're going to buy it on credit, is real important that you know your credit score.
It's important you know the score, but it's important you know the data. And so the score will take care of itself if the data is correct. And so when you go and you get a copy of your credit report, whether you go anywhere or you go to our product, which is ScoreNavigator.com, at least with our product, we're going to highlight where we're going to show you where most errors are going to occur. And then we have the point deduction, so we're going to show you how many it's costing you. You recover those, you maximize your score, then you're ready to go buy. But even if you go to some of the other places, annualcreditreports.com, don't buy the score. Get a copy of your free credit report, and then look for the data. Look what's on there and try to compare and see what you feel might be accurate and what might not be. And the positive credit will have as much impact on that credit score or the lack of positive than the negative credit. So you got to look at both.
Rusty, when you know your credit score, and if you get it from ScoreNavigator.com and you know it's accurate, and you go to buy an automobile, and the finance guy says, that ain't the credit score I'm getting for you, how do you let him know the credit score the credit score that I get, I know is the real deal here?
That's right. You bring a copy of the report because, they pull credit from all different sources. And so the repository that they're doing, which is just an affiliate of one of the credit bureaus, they may not have the accurate data. They may not have the same data that you have. And so you've got to provide them with that. Say, look, based upon if these changes were done on the report that you have, then the score is going to be there. The best thing to do is once you get a report from us is to make sure that the data that's being reported is accurate. Once it's accurate there, you can get it updated with the credit bureaus. Then when they do pull credit on you, there's a better than 90% chance they're going to get the right report, so they're going to get the right score. They're going to get that stuff. But if you go see them beforehand, chances are your score is going to be wrong, and then you're going to be placed into a wrong category of financing, and you're going to wind up paying too much for that vehicle over time.
The other thing that you have pointed out every time you've been on the show, but for those people who may be traveling and are in Columbia for the holiday and have not heard you before, how long you been in this business?
I started in this business in 1981.
Now the important thing here is okay. The important thing is you started in 1981. How many credit reports have you ever looked at that are absolutely 100% correct?
And I'll give you this number. I have looked over 1 million credit files in my history in the credit industry, and I've never seen one completely accurate.
So the chances of you having an accurate score are zero. Now people are going to say, okay, well, you just told me that. Why is it then when I get a credit score from your company that it's right?
Well, because we're going to make sure that the data is being reported correctly. So we're going to highlight that and show you that. So when you first get the report, the data is not going to be 100% correct and the score is not going to be 100% correct. But with just a few moderate changes that you can do, because we're going to show it's just going to be a blueprint right there. It's got a map. It says this is what you can do. You do this, and then you'll have your data right, and then you'll be able to maximize your score. Then you'll have the right score. Then you go get yourself financed somewhere.
And how much is the cost to do this?
Well, we charge $24.95, but because they come through you, they get it for $19.95, so they actually get a discount.
And it's a one-time service. I mean, this isn't a monthly service; it's a one-time deal.
One-time deal. Most of them never have to use it again at all. Unless they just want to keep doing the checking and stuff, because it does include your credit monitoring, your alerts, your identity theft. It's all included into there.
Now, Rusty, how about those people who say, God, I wish that's all the problem I had. Hell, I went through a bankruptcy. I got problems. What do you have to offer those people?
That's where we have our full-fledged credit management, credit education with our coaches for them, where we work with them on all three bureaus so that they understand Equifax, Experian, TransUnion data, the credit tools, the calculators, the budgets that I told you that we work with as financial planners for them as well. So they get a full-fledged 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months of or even longer on having us watch and work with them with their credit files.
for those people who are looking to buy any major purchase in the new year, or even, we've been talking about buying a car between now and the end of the year, spend $19.95 and go armed with information that will help you get the best interest rate you can on the purchase of a car, new or used, and know that you're armed with accurate information rather than being taken advantage of. Go to ScoreNavigator.com. Rusty, I thank you so very much for coming and sharing on Health, Wealth, and Happiness.
You too, Gary. I wish you a happy new year, and I hope you start feeling better soon. And just hug a lot of people during New Year's, and maybe you get rid of